My name is Caleb Morin, and I used to believe paper was the final version of reality. Then a demolition packet landed on my desk for a hospital with a wing no map admitted existed, and once I saw it, the county started trying to erase that too. My job is to sign off on things that are about to disappear, not like sheds and carports and accessory dwelling units that people attach to their houses and say they didn't build. I'm talking daycares that become parking lots, church annexes that disappear and become vacant land in the GIS layer. I used to like the neatness of all of it, the way paper could be a lever, policy, instructions, the way a stamp could make the county feel like it had a spine. That changed when this all happened. 6 years in, county records and compliance will do that to you. It teaches you that everything is either a file or a problem, preferably both, because problems come with deadlines, and deadlines come with coffee and a little respect, the kind you can't quite name but can feel when someone pauses before they interrupt you. I'm not the person who decides what gets built. I'm not zoning, not planning. I'm the person who decides whether what you're telling us matches what you're asking us to let you do. I review demolition packets, environmental checklists, historical registry flags, right-of-way impacts, hazardous materials disclosures, all that kind of stuff. The stuff that nobody reads until something collapses and the word liability becomes a prayer. My supervisor, Diane, calls it making sure the story holds together. I used to think she meant the paperwork. Now I know she meant the county. That Monday, the hospital came across my desk. It had a name once, Old Dymphna Memorial, which always made me think of saints, bruises, but everyone called it Old Dymphna or the Hill Hospital. It sat back from Route 9 behind a line of scrub pine and a chain-link fence that had grown its own vines. Built in the early 60s, shuttered in the late 80s when the new medical center opened in the next town over. Since then, sealed, inspected, forgotten in the way we forget things that cost money to remember. The developer had finally bought the parcel. The plan was to demolish the existing structure in phases and build something that was not a hospital. Senior living, mixed-use retail, some wellness campus concept. All sleek glass renderings and smiling gray-haired couples holding smoothies. The demolition packet was thick enough to thump. Diane dropped it on my desk like she was giving me a cat that would scratch. "You got 2 weeks," she said. "You're the cleanest set of eyes we have. Make sure their story holds." 2 weeks for a phased demo on a legacy site? I asked. She gave me that look, half apology, half warning. "They want to break ground before the county fair. Everybody wants ribbon-cutting photos, and you're good at puzzles. Get to it." I was. It's the part of the job that I didn't tell people about at barbecues because it sounded like bragging, and it also sounded like I needed help. But I liked finding the mismatch. The permit number that didn't correspond to the parcel. The survey with a corner pin that existed in one document vanished in another. The signature that was just slightly too confident. In high school, when my father left, my mother kept the house by turning every bill into a solved problem. I'd watch her at the kitchen table, hair pinned back, sorting envelopes like cards. She never cried in front of me. She made lists instead. I learned early that if you could make a thing fit into a box, date, amount, payee, you could endure it. County work is like that and scaled up. It's chaos you can staple. I made a fresh pot of coffee, logged into the record system, and started where I always started, the as-built drawings and the fire safety schematics. Old Dymphna was big, brutal, rectangular, 2 short arms like a concrete animal sprawled on the hill. The packet had floor plans, elevations, asbestos abatement notes, utility shut-off maps, a clean environmental impact checklist that looked too clean. I highlighted what I always highlighted, anything involving patient areas, any mention of sealed spaces, any notes about unknown materials, and I cross-referenced all of it with the county's archive, microfilm scans from the 1962 permit, the 74 edition, the 81 sprinkler retrofit. Everything lined up in that comforting way that it sometimes does, like the world briefly agrees to be legible. Then I hit the demolition phasing diagram. Phase 1, West Wing, mechanical, cafeteria. Phase 2, main tower. Phase 3, East Wing and connecting corridors. They'd color-coded it yellow, blue, and red. On the diagram, the East Wing ended in a blunt hallway with a stairwell. The as-built drawings matched that. But on the surveyor's site photos, stapled at the back like an afterthought, there was another structure attached to the East Wing. A smaller wing, one story, extending out like a finger. At first, I thought it was a shed or a later temporary addition, something slapped on after the last recorded retrofit. Then I zoomed in. It had the same brick, same window rhythm, same old institutional beige paint around the eaves. It wasn't a shed. It was built with the building, and it wasn't on any plan. I leaned back and felt the small, private spark of satisfaction that comes when you find a mistake no one else has seen. That spark is dangerous. It's the reason I don't play poker. I flipped through again. Original permit drawings, no finger wing. Fire egress maps, no finger wing. Maintenance logs in the packet, no mention. Utility shutoffs, nothing routed there. I opened the GIS layer and turned on historical imagery. 1993 aerial, hospital still there, finger wing visible as a darker rectangle. 2001 aerial, still there. 2015, still there. It hadn't been added later. It had always been there. A place that existed in the world, but not in the county's story. I sent a quick email to the developer's consultant. Subject, clarification requested, East Wing appendage. I wrote, in site photos, there appears to be a one-story appendage extending from the East Wing, approximately 40 by 20 feet. This area does not appear on submitted plans or as-built. Please provide documentation confirming scope, use history, and inclusion in demolition phases. I expected a brisk reply, something like, oh yeah, that's a storage annex, we'll add it. Instead, the consultant called me. He was cheerful in that performative way. Caleb, he said, like we were friends, that's just an overhang. It has windows, I said. He laughed softly. Old buildings, lots of oddities, but it's within our scope. Yeah, but I need it on paper, I said, and I need the use history. There was a pause, a little gap where I could hear him decide which version of himself to be. I'll see what I can find, he said. But it's been abandoned since Reagan. Records are a mess. We're trying to help the county by cleaning it up. The words help the county always land weird when they come from someone with a project timeline. Send what you have, I said. I can't approve the packet with a structure that's not represented, though. After I hung up, I felt that old gatekeeper pleasure tighten in my chest. It was petty, but it was real. The knowledge that nothing moved without my boxes being filled. I dug into the county archive. It's my territory, half digital, half physical. I spent a minute looking through county records, tax disputes, code enforcement visits, all of that stuff. I found a box, or several boxes, from the hospital. There were more than there should have been. Old Dymphna had been a county hospital for decades before it transitioned over to a private institution. It had been a thorn the entire time. There was property tax issues. There was a minor fire in '97 that self-extinguished, as they said. The first box I opened had water damage along the bottom. The cardboard softened and bowed like it was tired. Inside were manila folders stamped with old department names, county health services, facilities, risk management, and a mess of loose papers that had been shoved in without sleeves. There were also patient file jackets. Not charts, no names visible at first, just the stiff cardboard jackets that they slide into, color-coded dates, admit, ward, attending, discharge. Most were blank. Some had handwriting that had bled with age. Some had labels that had been peeled off, leaving pale rectangles and grime. My stomach did a slow turn. Patient materials weren't supposed to be in a county basement archive like this, even old ones, even from a closed facility. Policy was explicit. Protected health information had storage requirements, retention schedules, chain of custody. It wasn't supposed to sit in a damp box under fluorescent lights where a bored clerk could flip through it while chewing gum. I set the box aside. There was another one. Old floor plans with a void stamped diagonally across them. The third had memos about staffing, union grievances, budget fights. The fourth had incident reports, falls, restraints, elopements, a euphemism for patients who got out. The language was all clinical, but the repetition started to feel like a pattern that you could trip over. Words like patient placed in seclusion, patient transferred to secured area per protocol, chart entry pending, chart entry not located. Not located. By noon, the satisfaction spark had dimmed into something else. Quiet, nagging irritation. Because it wasn't just the wing that was undocumented, it was the absence and the consistent lack of documentation across the board. It wasn't a single stray mention. It wasn't a measurement error. It was as if a hand had passed over that part of the building and all of the records and history and smoothed it out of the record entirely. I ate my lunch at my desk, a turkey sandwich, an apple, while clicking through old news archives. Most of the coverage about Old Dymphna was the predictable stuff: funding cuts, closure debate, urban explorers arrested for trespassing, a couple op-eds about mental health in the good old days that made me want to throw my stapler. Then I found a local paper piece from 1983, scanned so faint it looked like a ghost of ink. The headline was "County Board Addresses Unlicensed Unit Allegations." The article was short, the writing cramped, like they didn't want to give it too much space. It mentioned a whistleblower nurse, anonymous, who claimed there was a special program housed in a detached annex, and that patients were moved there without chart entries. The county board called it misunderstanding and rumor. The hospital administrator said the facility was in full compliance. There were no names, no follow-up. But there was one line that stuck in my throat. Records pertaining to patient placement are not subject to public disclosure due to privacy laws, the administrator said. Privacy laws, the perfect cover, the kind of sentence that ends inquiries. I printed the article anyway and slid it into my working folder like it was contraband. That afternoon, I called Diane. "I found something," I said. She was typing while I spoke. I could hear it through the phone. "Of course you did. What kind of something?" "There's a physical wing on the east side. It's in aerial imagery going back decades. It's not in any plans, not county plans, not submitted plans." "And the consultant," she said, "downplayed it. Said it's an overhang." "It's not," Diane said, more statement than question. "No," I said, and I found an old article from '83 mentioning an unlicensed unit. Her typing stopped. A small silence pooled between us. "That's above your pay grade," she said finally, her voice careful. "I'm not asking to investigate patient history," I said. "I'm asking how we demo a building that doesn't exist on paper." "You document the discrepancy," she said, slipping back into her procedural tone. "You request clarification, you flag it, then move on." "Move on to what?" I said, and I heard the edge in my voice. "To the rest of your job," she said. "Caleb, we're not the truth police, we're the county. We keep things running." There it was. The county is a machine. The story is a lubricant. After the call, I sat with the packet open and felt something I didn't want to name. Not fear, exactly. More like the sensation of standing too close to a drop and realizing you could fall without anyone pushing you. That night, I couldn't stop seeing the wing in my mind. A small rectangle attached to a bigger rectangle. A simple fact refusing to become a file. I told myself it was just bureaucracy, a missing record, a set of plans misplaced. The hospital had changed hands, changed administrators, changed standards. Things get lost. That's why my job exists. By the morning, when I opened the digital archive again, something had shifted. The '93 aerial imagery layer, the one I'd clearly seen the appendage in, loaded, but without it. The east wing was blunt, clean, exactly as the plans showed. I toggled the layer on and off. Refreshed, closed it and reopened. No appendage. My stomach did that slow, unpleasant drop thing. I checked the 2001 layer. No appendage. It didn't show up in 2015 either. The building, in the county's own visual history, had been edited. I sat very still, hand on my mouse, and listened to the office hum. Printer rollers, someone laughing near the break room, the air vents' constant sigh. I didn't tell anyone, not right away. I told myself it was a software glitch, a misaligned tile, a caching issue. So I did what I always did when I don't trust a system. I went to another one. Google Earth historical imagery still showed it, a little finger of structure stubborn as a scar. It existed in the world. It just stopped existing in the county. I took screenshots. I saved them to my personal drive, and then, feeling guilty, copied them to a county file with the neutral name east_wing_appendage_reference. When I went back to the county archive to print the 1983 article again, the link returned an error. File not found. I searched by headline. Nothing. By keyword. Nothing. By date range. Nothing. It was like my first printout had been the only time the county had allowed that story to be told. I stared at the empty search results until my eyes watered. This wasn't about a monster. It was about process. It was the sensation of being on the wrong side of a system that doesn't have to explain itself. By midday, the consultant emailed me a revised plan set. It included the appendage, but was labeled storage vestibule non-occupiable. Non-occupiable. Like the county could declare a room uninhabited and make it true retroactively. The revised phasing diagram colored it red, to be demolished in phase 3. No use history, no mention of why it had been missing. I read the cover letter 3 times. It was smooth, polite, full of phrases like per your request and in the interest of completeness. I forwarded it to Diane with a short note. Appendage acknowledged, use history still absent, county imagery discrepancy noted. I stared at the word imagery and felt absurd, like I was trying to explain smoke. Diane responded 5 minutes later. She said, "Do not put imagery discrepancy in writing. Come to my office." Her office smelled like peppermint tea and old binders. She motioned for me to sit without looking up from her screen. "You're getting weird," she said, not unkindly. "I'm getting accurate," I responded. She finally looked at me. Her eyes were tired. Diane had been here 18 years. She'd see things get built, get rezoned, get condemned, get renamed. She had the kind of pragmatism that comes from watching too much human effort dissolve. "What do you want?" she asked. "I want to know why a part of a hospital exists in reality but not in records," I said, "and why the county imagery changed overnight." "Because those systems are managed by people," she said, "and people make changes." "Who?" I said. She held my gaze for a long beat. "Caleb," she said softly, "sometimes you find a place in the county's story that someone patched over a long time ago, and the patch holds because everyone agrees not to poke at it." "That's not a rule," I said. "It is," she said. "It's an unwritten one." I could hear my own breathing in the small office. She sighed. "Look, if there's an unpermitted structure, we flag it. If there's a potential hazardous material issue, we require additional surveys. If there's a historical registry issue, we notify the preservation board. Those are the lanes. You don't go looking for ghosts." "Is it a ghost?" I said, "or is it just something no one wants in the file?" "There's an on-site inspection schedule," she said. "Environmental and structural. If you're that bothered, go. See it with your own eyes. Then you can write something grounded, concrete, no speculation." "Can I?" I said. She hesitated. "Yes, ride along, wear a vest, keep your mouth shut. And if you see something you don't understand, you bring it to me and we decide what language fits." That phrase, "what language fits," made me feel cold. 2 days later, I took a county vehicle, a white SUV with a seal on the door, and drove out to the hill. It was January, the kind of gray day that turns everything the color of a photocopy. The trees were bare. The chain-link fence around the hospital had a fresh padlock, which surprised me. Someone was keeping it contained. At the gate, an inspection contractor met me. His name was Raymond. He had the brisk, practiced friendliness of someone who enters dangerous places for a living. "Caleb," he said, "you're the paperwork guy, right?" "I'm the paperwork guy," I said. He handed me a hard hat and a high-vis vest. Mine still smelled like plastic from being issued last year and never used. Raymond clipped on a small body cam. "County requires it," he says. "CYA." "Sure," I said, trying not to stare at the camera like it was an eye. We walked up the cracked sidewalk. The hospital loomed bigger up close, its windows dark and uniform. The main entrance still had a faded sign, "Visiting hours 2 to 4 p.m." Someone had spray painted over it in looping letters that I couldn't read. The front doors were chained, but Raymond had a key for a side entrance. As soon as we stepped in, the air changed. It was colder, but not just temperature, density. The smell hit second. Stale disinfectant under mold, like someone had tried to clean a thing that wouldn't stay clean. Our footsteps echoed down a hallway lined with pale tile. The lights didn't work, but Raymond had a flashlight clipped to his chest. "Stay behind me," he said. "Yes," I said, and I hated how obedient I sounded. We moved through the West Wing first. It's what you'd expect. Abandoned offices, toppled chairs, a nurse station with dusty clipboards, a vending machine with faded out of order signs. But there was something else here too. Something the outside stories never mentioned. Boxes. Old bankers' boxes stacked in corners and alcoves like someone had meant to move them and never came back. Some were split open, papers fanned out like dead leaves. Some were still taped shut with brittle brown tape. On the sides, in faded marker, were labels. I read them and my mouth went dry. Patient records, Ward B, intake forms, seclusion logs, pharmacy, controlled, incident, injury reports. I stopped without meaning to. Ramon glanced back. "You okay?" "That shouldn't be here," he said. He followed my gaze and shone his light over a box with its lid crushed in. Inside were file jackets, 100 of them, edges warped. Some had names typed on old labels. Some had social security numbers. Some had allergies written in thick pen. It was an obscene violation, not just policy, but decency. The county's own retention protocols treated protected health information like radioactive material. Lock it, inventory it, shred it on schedule, never leave it in a place where random hands could touch it. And yet here it was, left like garbage in a hallway. "People break in," Ramon said, like that explained the years. "Maybe they drag stuff around." "Someone abandoned it," I said. I felt my voice harden. "Not kids, someone with keys." Ramon didn't argue. He didn't have to. We moved on. In the main tower, the stairwell smelled of rust and wet concrete. Someone had written "Don't look up" on a wall in thick black marker. Ramon laughed. "Kids," he said. I didn't laugh. The deeper we went, the more the hospital felt handled. Not looted, not trashed, but handled. Whole stretches of corridor were empty in a way abandoned places rarely are. No beds, no gurneys, no curtains. Even the ceiling tiles seemed aligned, as if someone had come through and made sure the building looked presentable in its depth. Then we reached the east wing. The hallway narrowed. The tiles were cleaner here, less cracked, like they'd been replaced later. There were no graffiti tags, no beer cans. The air smelled sharper and more chemical. Bleach, maybe. That scent doesn't fade like dust. It clings. At the end of the corridor, there was a door. Not a heavy hospital door, a plain beige metal door with a keypad and a handle. A door that looked too modern for a building frozen in 1987. Ramon stopped. "What's that?" I asked. "Not on my map," he said. His tone shifted, less friendly. I felt my pulse in my throat. Ramon raised his flashlight and then pulled out a small set of lock bypass tools, like this wasn't his first time encountering a door that shouldn't be there. "Sure you want to see?" he asked. "That's why I'm here," I said, and I heard the lie. I was there because I couldn't stand not knowing. Ramon worked with the lock and quick hands, and the door clicked open. The room beyond wasn't a room. It was a short corridor, 10 feet, leading to another door. The corridor walls were painted a fresh, clinical white. The floor was clean, not just no debris clean, as if someone had scrubbed it until the grout lines were pale again. My mouth went dry. Ramon stepped in and swept his flashlight. His beam caught a faint shine in the paint, and the smell of bleach intensified, sharp enough to sting my eyes. "This was recent," he murmured. "Who would clean this?" I said. Ramon didn't answer. He reached for the second door. This one didn't have a keypad. It had a simple handle, and above it, a sign with no hospital logo, no department name, just black letters on white plastic. Special Projects Annex. The words were worse than any unit number. They were administrative, vague, the kind of label you use when you don't want outsiders to ask what's inside. Ramon opened it. The annex was a wing, exactly like in the photos. One story, a long central hall with rooms on either side. All of the doors were closed. The ceiling lights were off, but the hallway was bright enough from Ramon's flashlight bouncing off the white paint. Everything was sanitized. No furniture, no scattered papers, no broken glass, no mold. It looked like it had been empty, with care, and then sealed. It also didn't look abandoned. Ramon walked slowly, flashlight swinging. "Feels like a set," he said, and his voice sounded smaller. There were traces, though. Not the mess of abandoned place, but something worse. The impression of things removed. Along the walls, you could see faint rectangles where framed notices had hung. The paint was a slightly different shade, like clean skin around a bruise. In one spot, the wall was pocked with small holes in a pattern that suggested a heavy bracket, something bolted in and later torn out and filled. In front of every door was a small plaque holder, the kind that slides a name card in. All of them were empty now. On the floor beneath one of them, Ramon's light caught a thin strip of paper, curled and trapped against the baseboard. He crouched, pinched it carefully between gloved fingers, and lifted it. It was a typed label, just a fragment, the rest torn away. It said "Evaluation, do not disclose." Ramon looked at me. For once, he didn't try and make it a joke. We stopped at the first door on the right. Ramon tried the handle. It was locked. The next was locked. All of them were locked. "Even abandoned psych units don't get left like this," Raymond said under his breath, almost to himself. "They strip everything, sure, but they don't keep the doors closed like this, like they're holding..." He didn't finish the sentence. At the end of the hall was another door, wider, double, with small reinforced windows, the kind you'd see in a secure psychiatric unit. Ramon tested it, and it opened. Beyond was a larger room, like a day room. White walls, clean floor, a drain in the center. No furniture. On one wall near the floor, there were metal rings anchored into the concrete. 4 of them, spaced like they'd been placed with intention. There were faint scuff marks around them, pale arcs like something had rubbed over and over, and then been scrubbed until only the suggestion remained. My stomach clenched hard enough to hurt. Ramon's flashlight beam trembled a little. He cleared his throat. "Maybe for equipment," he said, but he didn't believe it. Along the baseboards, the paint had been sanded. There were dull streaks where something had been scraped off over and over, like a person trying to remove marks without leaving evidence of removal. And in the corner, there was a shelf. Just one. Empty, except for a few curled labels stuck to the metal. Inventory stickers, maybe, the kind we would use in county storage. The sticker text was all faded, but one line was readable. "Property of County Health Services." Under it, in smaller print, "Return to records." I stared at that word, records, like it had reached out and grabbed my collar. Ramon shifted. "This is not normal," he said. We backed out into the hall again. On the left side, one door had a narrow slot at eye level, like a pass-through. The slot cover was gone. The edges around it were scraped bright, as if a metal plate had been pried off. Ramon shone his light through the opening. The room behind was empty and white, except for the wall. Someone had painted over something there, but not completely. A darker shape showed through the fresh paint, like a bruise under makeup. It looked like numbers, tally marks, rows and rows of them. Ramon angled his light. That's writing, he said. Or counting, I said. My voice sounded small and far away. We moved on. Near the middle of the hall, there was a supply closet door, slightly ajar. Ramon nudged it open with his boot. Inside were stacks of patient file jackets. Not charts, not papers, just the jackets, bundled in neat piles like someone had sorted them before leaving. They were clean, too clean, bleached almost to gray. Some had colored tabs still attached. Some had labels that had been scrubbed, leaving fuzzy patches where ink used to be. One jacket had a label that hadn't been fully removed. Ramon's light caught it at an angle and the faint embossing showed through. A last name, a date, and beneath it, in capital letters, annex. The folder jackets were evidence without content, like teeth without a jaw. Someone had kept the shells and erased the lives inside. My hands went numb in my gloves. Ramon shut the closet carefully, like he was putting a lid back on something that could spill. Halfway down the hall, his flashlight caught something on the wall, a small square of tape residue, and beneath it, faint pencil marks like someone had written directly on the paint and then scrubbed. Ramon leaned closer. "Can you read it?" he asked. The pencil was really faint, but my eyes adjusted. The writing was messy and hurried. It said, "If you ask, you go back." And under it, another line said, "Don't say your name." I swallowed. My throat made a small click. "That's..." Ramon started. "Someone's joke," I said automatically. "The way you say, 'it's just wind.'" Ramon straightened. "That's not a joke," he said. His eyes flicked through the locked doors, then back to me. He didn't move closer. He didn't try them again. His body language had changed to something I recognized from my own office. The posture of someone deciding what they could afford to know. "We document and we leave," he said, and his earlier confidence was gone. He sounded like me in Diane's office, a person trying to find the correct lane. As we walked back out, I noticed something I hadn't on the way in. The bleach smell didn't trail off when we crossed the beige door. It stopped abruptly, like a boundary. Outside the annex corridor in the old east wing, the air was stale and dusty and honest. Inside, it was scrubbed and sharp and curated. Ramon glanced at his chest camera and tapped it like he wanted reassurance. "Are you getting all this?" I asked. "It's supposed to," he said. His voice went flat and professional, the way people get when they're afraid of saying the wrong thing out loud. On the way back through the rest of the hospital, I noticed the emptiness even more. Where there should have been decades of abandonment, piles, the messy truth of time, there were clear corridors and bare rooms, except for the boxes. Boxes of records left in violation of every policy that supposedly exists to protect people who can't protect themselves. Boxes that felt less like negligence and more like discard. Like someone had dumped the wrong part of history in the wrong place and then made sure the right part was sanitized. Outside, the gray air felt thin. The cold was a relief. Ramon stood by the SUV and lit a cigarette with shaking hands. "You going to put that in your report?" I asked. He exhaled hard. "I'm going to put what I can prove," he said. "A secured wing, evidence of recent maintenance, locked rooms, hardware and floor, sanitization." "And the jackets," I said, "the scrubbed labels." He looked at me like I was naive. "I didn't read any names," he said. "I didn't ask if you read the names," I said. His jaw tightened. He flicked ash from the cigarette. If I put patient file jackets with erased identifiers, somebody will ask why. Then it's not demo and abatement. Then it's. He stopped, searching for the word. Then it's history, I said. He met me in my eyes and said carefully, then it's not in my contract. I felt something in me twist. Not anger, not disappointment, something closer to betrayal, but quieter. That annex, I said, it's not on any of my plans. Ramon stared past me at the hospital, at its blank windows. It's on the building, he said, like it was the only safe sentence. That night, back at my desk, I opened my email and found a message from the consultant. Clarification requested, East Wing appendage. Thanks for your due diligence. Revised plans attached. Please note that all structures are included in demo scope. No additional use history exists in available records. No additional use history exists. I pulled up the county record system and searched for special projects annex. Nothing. I searched for annex and secured and special program. Nothing. I was perplexed, frustrated, more annoyed than anything. Then a tinge of fear washed over me. The fear of knowing that the official record could be changed, and even those tasked with preserving it couldn't stop it. I glanced at my phone, saw a missed call, unknown number. There was a voicemail. I opened it. It was a voice, not live, a recorded message, tinny and official sounding, like an automated line. This is County Health Services, the voice said. It was a woman's, flat and tired. Regarding your request to access annex records, those records are not subject to disclosure. Please do not attempt in-person retrieval. Thank you. Then after a brief pause, as if the tape had caught on something it wasn't supposed to play, the same voice said quieter, Please stop. Please just stop. The line went dead. That was it. Sat in the dark, phone pressed to my ear, listening to the absence. On my desk, the demolition packet waited like a sealed mouth. In a week, maybe less, Diane would expect my summary, a neat set of bullet points, hazards flagged, discrepancies resolved, a story that held. I could do what I was trained to do. I could write appendage added to plans, no use history and records, recommend proceeding with demolition subject to standard abatement. I could send it up the chain and let the county machine do what it does best, keep running by making things fit. Or I could write the other thing, the thing that doesn't fit into any checkbox, the thing that would make me the problem, not the reviewer, the thing that would force someone higher up to say, in a meeting with fluorescent lights and coffee, we need to talk about that annex. It wasn't just a place that existed without a record. It was that, depending on my actions, I would codify that story. I opened a blank document and typed the title the way Diane liked it. Old Dymphna Demolition Review, Summary of Findings. My fingers hovered over the keys. In the quiet of the empty office, I imagined the wing on the hill. White walls, locked doors, the clean smell of bleach that stopped at the threshold like a rule. I imagined the excavators arriving, the concrete cracking, the scrubbed corridor filling with dust. And I realized the worst part wasn't that I didn't know what happened there. It was that I could feel in my own hands how easy it would be to let it disappear anyway. I started to type, and the cursor blinked back at me, steady, patient, like it had all the time in the world.